Yanitza, talk to us about what it is about racial trauma in the workplace that resonates with you and why this group was important for you in the first place, why you thought to want to develop this group in the first place.
In my experience in working in a dominant Caucasian culture, especially with men, I have seen the discrimination towards me being a Latina and being compared to to Mexicans, and the slurs of I'm a wetback, or I need my visa, or go back to that crawling to get back to your country. So experiencing that myself was traumatic. It was hurtful, it was painful for me to have to stay in that environment because I had no other options. I had a new baby, I needed to work, and I didn't feel like there were any other options. So when this group came about, when the idea was presented, I wanted to take off with it. And I'm so glad that both of you also joined, because this is a space where we should be able to come freely and speak about our experiences, but not feel critiqued or judged by others. This should be a safe space where we can speak very openly and candid with one another, hear the feedback and guidance from others, be able to connect with others as well. I don't know for you, but I know for me, when I was going through that, I felt like I was the only one. Why me? Why am I experiencing this? Because as I look around the entire room, no one else is enduring this. But here I am getting this constant abuse from this one particular individual. And so I knew that somehow we all had to be connected with this. So the platform is here to give us the strength, to empower us to use our voice, to not feel like we have to suffer in silence like I had to. We should be able to persevere through all of these things and be an inspiration to others.
How long were you in that position or that particular job in that particular organization?
15 months.
That's a long time.
Yes.
That's a long time. What would you say was your breaking point, or was your aha moment that you didn't have to stay in that position?
I will actually tell you what transpired that led to me making that decision. So the guy that I was seeing, he was my mentor, and he had some health complications. And one day he went to the bathroom. It was a mess when he came out. As he was coming out, I looked into the bathroom because I was going in next, and I was like, hey, can you clean this up before you leave? Because I'm going in here. He goes, you're the Mexican, why don't you clean it up? That's your job.
That was your mentor?
Yeah. I stood there flabbergasted because he said that with other people in the room. And no one said anything. Everyone just sat there. And I went to my supervisor and I specifically told her, and she was an elderly white woman. I told her what happened. And she said, oh, that's just how he is. Don't take it personally. Very soon after that, I started to let applications fly. I started to connect with some people in the field to see if there was any openings or if they knew of any, because I needed to get out. In that moment, that theory really hit high for me, and I knew that it was going to get bad if I stayed.
I commend you because I think I'd have been fired that day.
Thanks.
I think I would have been fired that day and caught a couple charges. So I commend you for keeping your head. There's no way. There's no way. How long ago was that?
This was back in 2016.
Wow, not that far. Not that far at all. Ooh. Ooh. Was that the beginning of 2012? When was the Trump era? That was about the beginning of the Trump era, wasn't it?
I don't think so. Did Trump come in?
He was still in office. I think Obama was still in office.
Was it 16, 20? Because we're going into election this year, so that's 4 years that Biden's been in office. So was it Trump era from 16 to 20?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well, there you go. Yeah, it didn't even click.
Yep. It's crazy, but I associate an uptick in my own personal life with presidential eras. That was right at the beginning of the whole Trump, everybody getting excited about Obama. Not everybody, but everybody getting excited about Obama leaving office, having to leave office, and Trump really being the forerunner. I don't even know how he became a forerunner, but anyway, I digress. It's almost like it flipped a switch, and it opened up folks' throat chakra, and they felt like they could say whatever they wanted to say. They could act any way they wanted to act. Like all professional decorum and courtesy went straight out the window. I couldn't imagine. Now, how did he become your mentor? And what did that mean? What was the relationship supposed to be like compared to what the relationship actually was?
When I first started, I had not received yet my LCDC. So they put me under his wing because he had been with the organization for many years and he had the most experience on the team. So they wanted me to train under him, essentially, to gain the knowledge and responsibilities and the duties that I had to learn, but also for him to share his own experiences and how he handles situations. So that was supposed to be the dynamics of the relationship. And I should have known that there was going to be problems with him because as you were talking about the election period or who was in presidency, we just casually, him and I was having a conversation as we were doing our work. And he looks to me and he goes, "Oh, you must be a Democrat. Shame on you." I should have known in that moment. And politics wasn't even in the conversation.
Red flags.
Red flag, hindsight 2020, because I didn't see that in that moment. I kind of stayed puzzled going, why would he say that? What is he trying to mean by that? Well, what's the angle here? But I kind of brushed it off, said, okay, maybe I'm overthinking. Maybe I'm reading too much into this. But if I would have paid more attention, that was enough to let me know where we were going to be going.
And Krystal, jump in anytime. This is something that just absolutely intrigues me, because I know that, I haven't had 1 or 2 or 3 experiences like this. Has been my entire working career from the time that I didn't have any professional titles to all the way through, getting the professional title. I was just thinking about how, it was so easy to ignore the red flags because I wanted to be a good employee. Right. I wanted them to think of me as an asset and not a liability. So, something would be said and I'd do the dog head cock, like, did you say that out loud? Did you mean that the way that I took that? Was that? And then, of course, I would, in my head, just brush it off. Like, it's no big deal. You know, that's not how they are. You know that that's not what they meant, right? Like, over and over again until it just got to a place where it was like, no, you all are like, this is not okay. This isn't okay. So, I get the idea of ignoring the red flags. What would you say were some of those red flags? What would you have listed? Hindsight, of course, is 2020. So looking back, what would you say are the red flags for you now?
For me, is really paying attention now to what's the conversation like? What are the innuendos when you make such statements and comments? Because I have learned and I have worked under more male supervisor that are also Caucasian. And there's always this grandiosity about them that spews. And I can immediately tell that when they interact with me, there's that disconnect where they look at me very differently versus my white counterparts. And so for me, it's really paying attention now is your body language when you're around me. How do you look at me? Because we can be respectful and look at each other eye to eye. But if you look at me eye to eye and then start to stare me all over, then I'm starting to think, okay, what's going on here? Those comments, any relation of, oh, where are you from? Because you don't look white. So where are you from? I know you have something.
You have something.
Yes, I've heard that. You have something because I know you're not white. And so those comments like that, I'm immediately thinking, oh, okay. So you feel some kind of way. I'm also paying attention to the responsibilities. What responsibilities are you giving me? What type of caseloads are you giving me? What type of clients or tasks are you giving me versus, again, my white counterparts? Trying to think right now any other red flags that maybe stand out to me. And I'm sure there's so many, but can't really think of all of them right now. And I'm sure I've missed some.
What about you, Krystal? Talk to me about your experience as it can relate to Yanitza's and the differences that you see.
So mine, my experience is actually not even just racial. It was also the age difference with my first experience. So I got into the social work field pretty early on. But before I was licensed, I was in a hospital, like just one of the county hospitals in my area. And initially, everything was okay. Like, they were very welcoming. But like you say, hindsight, when I first got there, there was another African-American woman that worked there, and everybody warned me about her. I did not meet her yet. I think she was like on a leave or something. So by the time I met her, everybody's, oh, you have to watch out for this person. She's very negative. Mind you, this is my first real job after college. Like, so I'm not, I don't know what to expect. I was working at Wingstop. So I don't know what to expect. I'm in the hospital and I'm like, to me, I'm looking at like, these are my elders because, I'm brought up to respect your elders, things like that. And I'm like, well, I have to go off what they say. And I think I was like 22. So I'm listening to them and I'm like, oh, this must be a horrible person. Like she's when she gets here, just try to avoid her. Like they were really giving me updates about her. I met her and we went on a community. We went like to visit the community clinics. Super cool, super nice. Was giving me the rundown. So in my head, I'm so confused because I'm like, this does not match what they said about her. So I'm like, she's cool. Like we actually still talk to this day. So I never told her anything. I never told her anything about it, but I just noticed once I started getting closer to her than everybody else, then it started, that same energy and the things that they were saying about her, it started about me. Now, mind you, we never had any run-ins, anything. At this time, I was in grad school, so I would work. Literally, by the time I clock out, I'm headed to campus. So I couldn't really talk and fraternize after work, things like that. So all of a sudden, I was getting called into my director's office. Krystal's not doing this. Krystal's not doing that. Mind you, I'm leaving at a certain time, so I can't do these things that they're talking about. So I was getting frustrated, and I was listening to Yanitza, like, and it wasn't. I you know how sometimes you know it's racially driven, but it's not in your face as like someone is saying, "Oh, she's black, she's this, she's that." So I was like, why are they only doing the young black women in this office like this? They're not doing anyone else like this. Only the two young black women in this office. Why is this happening? Luckily, I had family that also worked in that hospital, so I would go and vent to them, and they're like, you know what? You know how some people do, you can just pray about it. Just pray about it. So I was like, I don't want to be praying about it. Something need to happen. And I would go to HR. So I was one of those people. I was like, look, if HR don't get involved, they're going to get involved later, because then I'm going to be fired because I'm going to handle it myself. And it came down to, we actually end up having this big meeting, because I'm one of those people, I'm going to put it on the forefront. And I think that's what happened. That does not happen often when you are experiencing any racial trauma in the workplace, or just trauma in general in the workplace. A lot of people are not able to find their voice that early on and advocate for themselves and pull the people that they need to come in. Me, I don't know. Some people can blame it on me being a Taurus. I don't know. I'm a little stubborn. I'm going to make sure I do what I need to do. I don't know what you want to blame it on, but whatever it was, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna let y'all fix it before I have to fix it. And I had to remove myself. We had this big meeting. Nobody could give facts. Nobody could give facts as to what they were saying and doing. And meanwhile, I had paper documentation. I was like, on this date, at this time, this happened. On this date, this time, this was said to me. On this date, this time, I reported this. Nobody did anything. I'm running it down, and I had about probably 2 or 3 months worth of documentation, because I was not playing. Because I was like, you know what? If y'all gonna get me in trouble and y'all gonna mess with me, just know I'm coming for you. So I think my experience, I end up having the upper hand, because I decided I was tired of being backed in the corner. Because it had got to the point I was crying. Mind you, I'm young, and these are older people, and in my mind, these are the people that are supposed to help me, guide me. And so my feelings were hurt young age. Now I wouldn't care, but at a young age, my feelings were hurt, and I was like, why are they doing this to me? Questioning everything. I felt like I was back in the corner. I got so stressed one time. I remember I went to the doctor, and my doctor was like, what's going on with you? Y'all, I had broke out in hives. I had hives on my neck, my arm, my wrist, and on my ankles. And I did all this testing and everything, and my doctor finally was like, are you stressed? What's going on? And I was telling her about what I was going through at work. And then I was going to grad school. Then I had an internship. So it was like a lot going on. And long story short, after that, it's funny because we all end up getting laid off. They had a reduction in force. And I was like, y'all was so busy trying to get me fired. And now y'all gone too. I was like, they got everybody out of here. So, and it was funny because I knew that was going to happen. You know, when your job starts talking about budgets and stuff, something is about to happen. So I had already unpacked my office and everything. And everybody, when it did happen, it was crazy because they came to me and were like, Krystal, oh my God, can you help us with some help? Help what? So I think to that place, to that too, it kind of gave me a little bit of PTSD when I started going to my other jobs, because I always in the back of my head, and not intentionally, but I'm aware that I do it. I'm always kind of hesitant to build relationships with my coworkers, because I'm like, do you already have a stereotype? Do you think I'm the angry Black woman? Are you going, anything that I say, are you going to take it as me being combative? And when I'm just standing up for myself or I'm questioning something, are you going to take it? Are you going to report me to somebody? So in the back of my head, I'm always having to second guess how I respond to certain things or how I do certain things, because if my counterparts who don't look like me say those same things or worse, nothing happens. But if it's me, I'm probably going to end up in someone's office, probably going to get a write-up, and I probably could get fired depending on how they could finesse it. So my experiences weren't necessarily blatant disrespect and calling out racial slurs, but it was I'm going to get you, the passive aggressiveness. It was the challenging. It was the placing the stereotypes on me. It was all of these things like, y'all going to back me up in the corner. And now what do I do? So a lot of times you have to kind of get out of your emotions, which is what I had to do, and just think like, have to be strategic about making sure what I have in black and white is substantial enough to go with what I'm trying to present. Because at the end of the day, HR is for the company, not us. So I had to advocate for myself and say, hey, these people are bothering me and this is what I have, compared to them. They're like, oh, Krystal just does this, Krystal just does that, but they couldn't improve anything. So that's what helped me. And like I said, my experience is just a tad bit different, but I can definitely say it still lingers even in present day. Even though I've been at my position now for 6 years, I'm still hesitant with some of the people I talk to, because I'm not going to change how I talk and I'm not going to change who I am, but I can't help but in the back of my head say, you're probably judging me because of how I'm talking, what I'm saying, and what I'm doing, when there's another counterpart that can literally cuss in a meeting and nothing happens. So it happens in different ways.
That whole idea of being policed, right? Police to transformation, or not transformation, police to conforming. I can't get the word out, but being policed so that you will be acceptably conforming to the white standard. I hear both of you all stories, and I hear Yanitza suffering in silence, right? And figuring out, having to navigate her own way out of it, because you recognize when you went to your supervisor, you recognize you had no support from that office. And I hear you, Krystal, when you say, but I was vocal. I did speak up. I did advocate for myself, but the end result is the same, which is these trauma responses that we have in the new places that we go to. Because the simple fact of the matter is no real closure was given to either situation. Right. And that's closure in that particular organization, but that's also closure within ourselves. And that's one of the things that I have been really, really looking at, especially when it comes to a few of my clients who have experienced this. And I tell everybody, I'm my first guinea pig. So anytime I come up with a particular theory, I try it on myself, and then I try it on my kids. Yes, my children. They are my hamsters and guinea pigs. But I try it on us before I try it on my clients. And so, but I recognize, like, my entire career has been dealing with white folks. Now, I'm from Ohio. I know you two are in Texas right now, but I'm from Ohio, and Ohio is what Dr. Fred Shuttlesworth said prior to his death. He said, he said Cincinnati, but I say it's the whole damn state. But he said Cincinnati is as far south as you're going to be in the north circa 1862. And I absolutely concur. Ohio is horrible as far as race relations are concerned, if you will. But I started out the gate really very, very negative, even coming from my household, because my mother was and is a realist. And my mother, she just told me, she was like, you got to recognize, and I was 17, 18 years old going into the military. And she told me, she said, you have to recognize you starting out the gate with 3 deficits. You're young, you're intelligent, and you're Black. So those three deficits right there. She said, and then the caveat that twists it all is that you're female. So you're going to be going into a workforce that doesn't like you, period. They don't like you, and you need to start off that way. And I, being the Taurus that I am, was like, oh no, the world is not like that. My mom is just jaded. She was right. She was right. I had to tell her, you was real right. You was always right. You know, it was just hard for me to grab that concept. But like, even up to, I have been a therapist now for going on, I've been licensed for 4 years. And last year, in January of December of 22, I had decided I was going to go for my independent license. And so I joined with an organization. And I had, even in the interview, I knew that it was just like, if I have to work under her, this is not going to go well. And this was the CEO. And I was like, you know, even in the interview, I was like, you know what? I've looked at your webpage and there are no Black people. There are no brown people. There doesn't even look like there's any queer people. Like, you don't have any, everybody is white. Like, so I had gotten to the point in my career or in my thinking that I was just like, I'm just going to put it out there on the table in the beginning. That's it. That's all. And then that way we can deal with, if they don't want to hire me, they can figure that out right here, right now. And so I was like, you don't have anybody that looks like me. And so I'm trying to figure out, because one of the things that I did not want to do is I did not want to get a supervisor that was not Black. I just did not want it. I was like, they just don't relate. And I just can't do it. And so she convinced me. She was like, no, I have a perfect, she's at the university you're thinking about going to, but she had said some things even in the interview. So when I asked her, like, so what are you doing? You know, I have hard conversations, and I don't have a problem having hard conversations. I don't mind making people feel real uncomfortable. Okay. Because I'm going to challenge, if you're a clinician, I'm going to challenge you at your biases, because if you have biases that you are working out of, that means you are bringing harm to the industry. And yes, I was almost about to cuss y'all, but I'm a gatekeeper. And so, yeah, I'm going to gatekeep. And so I was like, so how are you having these hard conversations? And she went on to say, she took a pause though. She took a pause, and it was in that pause that I was like, oh, you lying. Okay. Mm-hmm. So now you're just not going to tell me the truth. Now we really have a problem. And I was like, okay, do you accept this position knowing that this woman is lying to you, in order to get the supervision that you need? And I was like, you can do, and here's one of those things that I justify my red flags. You can do anything for a year. You can tolerate anything for a year. Like this isn't your end result, right? So I'm already in the interview crafting my exit plan. Red flag, but here I am justifying it because I had a need and I understood that, right? And so I joined this women's organization, and I have a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful supervisor. She is my supervisor and will be my supervisor until the day we leave this planet, because she's absolutely wonderful and she is white. But I absolutely love her. I have been spoiled because my first supervisor, I refused to even take the licensing exam in the first position that I had, because they had a white female, it was a white female clinician. And I was like, she's a Karen. Like, there's no way I'm going to sit under supervision. I'm too old for that. I can't do that. And so I refused to take, I stayed a mental health specialist for a good year, almost a year and a half after I graduated, because I refused. I like my job, but I refused to sit under her tutelage. So when I got my first clinical position, I got a Black supervisor. She was absolutely amazing. Absolutely love Gina. I'll be able to mention her first name. I won't say her last name because I didn't get her permission. But Gina was wonderful. Gina took me through the first year and a half of being a clinician. And my first year and a half was the George Floyd, Black Lives Matter, police brutality. It was all of that. And we were our organization was trying to have, conversations and trainings around this, because she and I think maybe two other people were the only Black people in the entire organization, which was this community behavioral health place. And so we had a training, and I called her and I was like, oh my God, I really want to flip out right now, because why did we do this? What was this supposed to, what did you hear what he said? And she just let me go in and let me air that all out. And she was like, at the end of it, she was like, I heard everything that you had to say. I understand how you feel, and it is valid. She was like, now, what's the most beneficial way of answering all of that, right? So she made me think through. So when I'm having this interview with this woman, I'm literally thinking through the whole process. Like, what's the benefit, and what's the outcome you're gonna get if you bring this up like this right now, and da da da. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna take the position because I'm a contractor. I understand contract. All I gotta do is cancel the contract if it gets too hot. And I was buffered because of my supervisor. My supervisor took a lot of the guff from this particular female for me, right? And for all of her supervisees. And when she chose to leave, she left in the middle of the year last year. She left in June. It was like a whole ass blanket being pulled away from me. And I had to sit with this woman for an hour every week. And I was like, ma'am, I know you don't know, but this is all just so inappropriate. I had a issue, and I said that there was a client that they wanted to give me. They didn't give you the ability to say, yes, I'm a good fit for this client, or no, they just assigned you people. And so I was getting this other client. I was getting an individual client from a couples client that another clinician had. And they were still in couples therapy. And so my concern was, well, are they aware that I'm able to read all of their couples information and their notes and their progress and what's happening? Is their partner aware that there's another clinician? And so I was raising up, concerns about confidentiality. This woman was in labor. She was in labor, active labor. She calls me. I don't know she's in active labor, but she calls me and she's like, why won't you see this client? And I said, well, and I went on to explain why. And she didn't hear anything I said. And she said, well, is it because that they're gay, that they're a same-sex couple? I was like, nothing I just said has anything to do with what you just asked me. Like, what do you think? And she's like, well, I think you can decline them, but you'll need to get supervision on this. So you'll need to call your supervisor and tell her. I was like, I don't need supervision on this. What are you talking about? Like, what is going on? I was like, what I am saying. And I'm like, literally at this point, I'm yelling at her because I'm like, you're not hearing me. You're not listening to anything that I'm saying. And she was like, oh my God, I am in labor right now and I can't. And I was like, you called me to berate me while you're in labor? I was like, lady, that's so not okay. Like, that's not okay. That's not okay. I was like, you know what? We're going to get off the phone. We're going to get off the phone and we're going to deal with this at a later date. But I'm not seeing this client until they sign a release of information. And when she got back from maternity leave, we were in a meeting and I became her topic of conversation about what we're not supposed to do and how we're not supposed to. And I was like, oh, yeah, no, I stand on the ethics, babe. I stand on the ethics. I said, and I don't care what your title is. I don't care who you think you are. But the simple fact of the matter is, like, we ain't doing it like this. And that was the day that I gave her my 60-day notice. I was like, we out. I ain't doing this. I'm not doing this with you. So I leave. This woman tries to hold on to me for, I know, an additional month. I'd given her all my notes and cleaned out whatever needed to be cleaned out. And she tells me, and the majority of my caseload were people that I brought with me. And she tells me, these are our clients now. And I was like, if they want to be, I mean, I don't have a problem with that. If they decide they want a different therapist, so be it. But you don't get to think of these people as yours. Mm-hmm. They don't belong to you. This is their health. This is their well-being. Like, why do you even think like that in the first place? And so she held on to me and she kept with one note. And she was like, no, you need to explain this. And so I would explain it. And she'd be like, but no, it needs to be like this for an entire month. And I finally looked at her and I was like, you know what? Today is our last day. Okay. We're going to fix this the way you want it to be fixed, because it is more than well enough to go to billing. But we're going to fix this the way you want it to be fixed. I'm going to put your name in parentheses so everybody knows that this is your piece and not mine. But I ain't doing this with you no more. I don't work for you anymore. I don't work with you anymore. I don't want to do this anymore. Well, I got the pissed off white woman look. And I was like, she mad and she mad. And I was like, but I still don't care because my job ain't with you. And so I went on about my merry way, turned in all of my paperwork for my independent license. And like a week later, after I turned in all my paperwork, I got an email that said, congratulations. I was all ecstatic. I'm jumping up and down. And then 7 minutes later, I got an email from the board that said, please disregard that. We didn't mean to do that. Your license is under investigation right now. So we need to do. I was like, wait, what? This woman had put in an allegation that I stole client information from them.
Wow.
And I was like, wait a minute. The board, the Ohio board, says that I'm responsible for client documentation 5 years from the point in time that I've seen them. That is not if I'm in private practice or if I'm in a community, but it's just, this is my license. So I'm not really sure what this is all about. This woman, she told them, she said, oh, she lives in North Carolina, but her address on the website is in Columbus, Ohio. She's like, so that's against the rules. I was like, I have multiple addresses. What are you talking about? I own that house in Columbus, so I can use it as my address. Like, it was all of these. She put like 4 different allegations, and I went through the anxiety of having to wonder if I had done something wrong. What did I do? Was it wrong for me to, take my client's information and make sure that I had their notes and everything that had my signature on it? I'm going through all of this. And I told my supervisor that once it was all cleared up with the board, and the board was like, yeah, just be mindful that the contract says, and I was like, the board doesn't do contract law. So I I don't know why y'all, but whatever. Thank y'all. Just give me my license. And so what I recognized is once it was all said and done, as much as I was in a celebratory mood, I was also literally coming down. I could feel myself coming down from all of that anxiety, all of that heaviness that I was carrying for months. I was carrying that for months. And I realized then, like, we got to have an answer to these behaviors in the workplace, right? Because everybody doesn't have the same mindset. I thank you, Yanitza, for talking about the fact that you.
Oh, no.
This is just one organization. I can go to any organization, right? Like I'm secure. I'm confident in who I am. You don't have that thinking because you get so caught up with what's happening around you and what's happening to you that you start to feel like you're the only and they're the big, they're the big brother that you're supposed to, and what could they say about you? What could they do to you? And you get so caught up in that, that you really forget that you are not enslaved to people's bad behaviors. You're not. And unfortunately, white people, some white people have really, really, really bad relational behaviors. And I was reading an article that talked about why white people in the workplace don't stand against other white people when they're doing things that are blatantly racist or misogynistic. And again, it's all this idea of being in fear. Everybody's afraid. Everybody's afraid I'm going to lose my job. I'm going, I got to take care of my family and this, that, and the other. And so there's whispers. There may be whispers and people are like, well, I saw what happened. I just want to check on you, make sure you're okay. Like, I don't want you to check on me. I don't want you to check on me.
I want you to step in and do something.
Mm-hmm. If you
That's
ain't
how
gonna
you can help me.
If you ain't gonna go into that office with me, right? If you ain't gonna look at them and be like, you all off. That's all off. If you ain't gonna stop them when you hear them, baby, I don't want them. I don't want your whispers. But I understand your fear, but I don't want your whispers. I don't want your support. And so, I hear us. And I think about how many people, I think you guys know about Dr. Candia Bailey from Lincoln University.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Here is a very well-educated, very well-connected, high-level academic, and she committed suicide.
Mm-hmm.
She committed suicide. It was better for her to literally find relief in death than it was for her to keep going through this thing with this individual.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't want nobody else to lose their life, take their life because of what ignorant people, white people, because and we got some black folks out there that really, I want to shake up. But the majority of the folks that we're talking about are white people from America, and they are, they're not worth your life. If there was ever a message that I needed to say, they're not worth your life, your income. They're not worth your peace. They're not worth any of that. You can find another job. Baby, listen, McDonald's is hiring. Some McDonald's are hiring at $20 an hour.
Mm-hmm.
I tell you, I'll flip a burger before I flip you and I end up in jail. Okay.
And I think that's the importance. I think that's from her listening to her story and then just knowing my own experience and everyone else's experience who has talked about this. Oftentimes you do find yourself feeling like you're alone because people are wanting to keep their jobs and not everyone wants to speak up because that is a potential thing that can happen. You can get fired for speaking up. I didn't get fired for speaking up, but we end up getting let go anyway. But I was just like, I was in a place where I was like, I don't care. Like, I've always been a person who's like, no job is going to make me feel so uncomfortable that I'm crying. So when I started crying, and it wasn't the job, it was the people. It's always the people. So when I started crying and I started stressing and breaking into hives, I was like, yeah, something has to happen. And I think people a lot of times live in fear because, especially in this economy, there are a lot of people who just kind of have to deal with it because it's like, I'm by myself. They probably have kids and they have to do all of these things by themselves. So it's all of these other factors. And at the end of the day, a lot of people feel like they are alone. They don't have the support because other people want to protect their jobs or other people can't relate. And even with this situation, I don't know if she had children or anything, but I hate to hear that she felt like she didn't have a support or a village to do anything for her. And even if she did, the impact of the bullying that was happening to her, the village or the support team that she did have could not compensate for what was happening to her at work. And a lot of times I think people forget we were at work most of our life. Like, and we spend most of our time at work with these people. And sometimes some people spend it more at work than with their own family. So just imagine someone's dealing with this literally every day. And then they're like, you know what? I just won't be here. How about that? And to me, I just can't fathom. But at the same time, I get it. Unfortunately, I understand what headspace she was in, and it just as a therapist, because you kind of see all of these different things and this turmoil that people go through and they experience just day to day. So adding on work trauma and someone bullying you and you can't get the resources you need, nobody's backing you up, you can't do anything. And the only thing that ended up helping her was the letter she sent before she took herself out of here. And it's unfortunate that now something is happening after she's no longer living, and I hate that she had to do that, but I'm sure what her thought process was to still get something done so it doesn't happen to anyone else. I just hate she had to be the example for that. But it does make you kind of realize, like, it's more than just having a DEI. Like, yeah, we have DEI, but are you actually making these people who are targeting certain people, are you actually making them take these courses, or are you firing them? Why aren't these larger organizations taking more initiative to correcting these things? And correcting them is getting them out of there. Like, you change the culture by getting those people out of there. I ain't gonna go on my rant, but I just think it's bigger than just taking courses. It's bigger than taking classes and checking stuff off on an online course. Because at the end of the day, the people that it's happening to, it's felt, it's disheartening, it's painful, it's definitely stressful, it's depressing, and it definitely impacts people's mood. And unfortunately, some people do decide, well, you know what, nothing is helping, I would rather just not be here. And that's unfortunate. I hate that even is the option, because people won't correct what needs to be done in these organizations and get these people out of here.
I think you make a really valid point in that, people feel so isolated. They feel the protective shell that I developed was this turtle shell that I could hide into, right? I could duck my head in, and then I could peep my head out when I wanted to. But I think that it means it's what you were alluding to is that what needs to change is that those people in the workplace need to feel isolated. Mm-hmm. They need to feel like their behavior is unacceptable in this organization. You want to change culture, then you're going to have to, instead of silently allying yourself with or supporting, because, we have supervisors that literally supported these people. Oh, that's just how they are. I don't give a damn. I don't give a damn, but that's how they are. They can be like that when they in their house with their kids. But they can't be like that in an organization that is responsible for everybody's psychological safety. We've got to, and maybe that's a push that needs to happen, like the Black Lives Matter movement was, making people understand that, our police are policing Blackness. They're not policing safety, they're policing Blackness. And so maybe that's something that needs to happen, a movement that needs to happen, in that women and men who are experiencing these things need to speak up and speak out and be very loud. I love social media. I love it. I know it has it's some dark spots, but the reason I love social media is because you can't keep nothing hidden. There is nothing. You can't hide behind, well, I just did this and that's enough. If somebody is willing to say, this is it, this is what I went through, it can be one of those things that end up going viral, start trending, and become a movement. And so maybe, that's an option, that this needs to be a movement and not just a support group. Because again, my whole goal is that not near one more person, not near one more take their life because of a job and somebody, because Dr. Candia, she was being bullied and harassed and intimidated by one individual out of the whole freaking organization. And she went to his supervisors and they silently supported him. And so, she had a group of beautiful, I believe, sorority sisters and folks that she trusted. But like you said, Krystal, it wasn't enough to compensate for the absolute torture that she was experiencing every day. Every single day. But I'm gonna tell you, Dr. Candia, we hope that you rest in power, but y'all gonna have to bail me out of jail. I'm gonna just tell y'all that right now. Okay. I'm not, I love my life. I love my life. I may not necessarily respect yours all that much. So, y'all gonna have to bail me out of jail, because I'm definitely, you could take me to that point, because I was there in November. Like, do I call this woman? Like, do I just throw all caution to the wind with my license and all this and show up on her doorstep? Because see, I know where you live, so we can take this any way you want to. And I know that I'm going to be, if I were to have done that, I was going to be a news headline. I was.
And those situations is what flusters me. You have the white counterpart that is justified in their behaviors and their actions. But when we decide to act, we are the problem. Like, we can't match your energy because we're in the wrong.
Yep. Because when you do it, it's aggressive.
Yes.
Hostile.
You're too loud. Getting out of hand.
Combative.
Got your hands moving too much.
Your neck going.
I'm scared.
Yeah, I fear for my life. Look, I tell him, you should. I mean, I'm gonna be honest. Like, if you gonna come at me, if you come for me, just know I'm coming at you. Because I've been through this. I've been in this rodeo way too long with way too many people like y'all that it ain't there no more. And I have clients who have been close to suicide. We've had to get some help in there for them on several occasions. And they're just experiencing, it's all of this anxiety and all of the fear, and the organization seems to be so big and I'm so little. And it's like it is a game plan out of a book or something that, if we can make you feel isolated and like you're the only one, we got you, right? This one young lady, that I'm still working with. She has a lawsuit against a really big organization. EEOC has said that indeed she has a real case, and they came. She's been dealing with them for over 2 years, and they came with an offer last month for $3,500.
Wow.
That's a slap in the face.
Baby, that ain't even a slap. That's we really don't
We don't care.
give an ass. Like we don't give a fuck. Like for real. And she was saying how she was reliving the devaluation.
Mhm.
Right? Here is this absolute first of all, it was dehumanizing to have to experience for and she had been in her position for 9 years. 9 years. And here she had to experience these people for a year of her career. And what y'all tell me is reasonable is 3,000. I literally had to tell her, I said, are you missing a few zeros? Is that a typo? And she was like, no, let me spell it out for you. $3,500. That's what they said is worthy of what I went through, of losing my hair, being in a depressive episode, not being able to go outside, being afraid to talk to anybody, being afraid, having all this paranoia, all this hypervigilance. It was $3,500.
How little you're regarded.
This is why I will forever be an advocate to say, F that job and quit and leave, because it's just not worth your mental health. Like you said earlier, I tell people all the time, I don't mind going back to Wingstop. I don't mind being a Walmart greeter. Like, I can put my pride aside for my mental health. I'm just have to pray along the way because these bills be billing. But I know something will work out because it's not worth it. It's just not worth it sometimes. And you just like, you know what? Sometimes it's okay to fight and advocate, but when it starts taking on your mental to that capacity, sometimes you just gotta, like, is it worth it? And that's another battle in itself, because you want to advocate for yourself, you want to make a change, but then you just kind of like, is it worth it? Is it worth it? And nobody knows until they're in that position.
That's the truth.
As you were saying that, Krystal, hold on, y'all. My thoughts just left.
All right.
I do that all the time.
You were talking about, the mental health. It took me a long time to get to that place where I understood mental health.
Mm.
My last job, I was there for 2 years. Again, that fear of living, I needed to provide, but I endured so much. In those 2 years, I was verbally assaulted. I had to kind of crawl up this unrealistic ladder because they just threw so much on me. And when I tried to say something about it, they basically just said, be quiet, you're going to do it. I dealt with so much harassment in that place, and I endured it. I left out of there with depression, high levels of anxiety. I had no drive. My mind went to dark places because I felt like I couldn't crawl out of this hole. I was so deep in the darkness, and it took me about 8 to 9 months to get out of there.
Wow.
All because, again, I justified. I have to work. I have to provide. I can't just. I didn't have a backup plan. So in my brain, if I don't have a backup plan, then I don't go nowhere. I stay. I suck it up. And I suffered as a result of that. So when you're talking about the mental health, what it does to you, I learned very, very hard. And I suffered for a long time as a result. And when I look back, it's worth it. To go through what I went through, It wasn't worth it for the pay. It wasn't worth it for the experience. It wasn't worth it for, getting out into the community and being a part of something. It wasn't worth it because I lost a part of me.
Yep. Yep.
And sometimes I still feel like today I'm still trying to find her.
Mm-hmm.
That's I want us to talk about that tail end, right? Because you have to have the courage to leave the place, but then you have to have the tenacity and the determination to heal from that place. And what does healing look like? I think this is a great place for us to stop with this first episode.